Welcome back to Compensation Matters, where we explore everything sales compensation, incentive design, and performance management. I'm your host, Deanna Romanovsky, and in our last episode, we talked with John Minnix and Tim Mektrakarn from Bright Defense about the biggest security risks companies face when working with vendors, the hidden costs of a data breach, and why compliance alone doesn't mean you're secure. If you missed it, I highly recommend that you check it out. But today, we'll be shifting gears. AI is changing the way that we sell, the way that we plan, and the way that we compensate. And of course, that means it's also changing the cybersecurity landscape. So, does AI make businesses more secure or more vulnerable? Are companies unknowingly exposing their sensitive data to AI-powered tools? And is AI making cyber attacks more sophisticated and harder to detect? John and Tim, thanks for sticking around.
No problem. I think your answer is yes. Is AI making things worse? Yes. Is AI making things better? Yes. So I think the key is, using AI intelligently, having policies and procedures for your organization around AI that make sense and that also keep you and your customers' data secure is important. Using the tools that are going to work best for your organization and are going to protect your data, and then making sure your employees aren't using tools that might be sharing your data publicly or your customers' data publicly or aren't from trusted sources.
Yeah, like John mentioned, I think the biggest thing is not addressing it at all, right? And confronting your employees about AI. So a lot of businesses are still just waiting for don't know what, right? They know people are using it, but they're afraid to come up with a policy, right? It's almost like kind of like bring your own device. I don't want to talk about it, but it's there. So these are the things that we need to address kind of in an AI usage policy to let people know what is acceptable by the business. What are the names of the tools that we allow people to use, whether it's Microsoft Copilot, OpenAI, ChatGPT, whatever the tool is, we should name it. And then we can wrap around controls around there, right? And then the ones that aren't allowed to be used, then let's block it, right? Let's make sure that they cannot get access to it. And that way our company's data or client information is not being kind of used to train a model that we have no control over. And so I think the first part is just making sure that we address it head on.
Yeah. There's a perception in the outside world, outside of IT, that cybersecurity professionals like yourselves are either skeptical or outright hostile towards artificial intelligence these days. Is that fair? Is it more nuanced than that? And John and Tim, why do you hate AI?
I don't hate AI. I think if you're not using AI, you're definitely behind because of, there's a vast amount of knowledge that's out there. Sometimes you're spending time just searching for the answers where this thing is telling you right away. And so there's a lot of efficiency gains to using AI, right? I have it plan my travel itinerary for me where I don't have to do that for myself anymore. But, there's different ways to use AI. And so we have to control that piece of it and just make sure that what's most important to the business is the company data, processes, procedures, customer information, those things that don't get leaked out by accident, right? And so we have to put these controls in place. And so it's not that we're trying to inhibit the use of AI, but we want employees to recognize what's important for the company to protect and always be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a AI usage policy at Bright Defense. Our employees are encouraged to use AI, but they're also encouraged to never put, or not encouraged, they're required to never put customer data, sensitive information about our company, about our customers in any of the AI platforms. So we want to be efficient, but we also want to be smart. And I think, as Tim said, if you don't specifically nail down what's acceptable in your organization and what's not, then employees are going to do sort of whatever they decide to do based on their knowledge and their risk tolerance, and you as an organization aren't going to have a handle on it. So it's important to say which tools are allowed, how they're allowed, what's not allowed, and make sure that's clearly stated in your policies, in your cybersecurity handbook, and have your employees recognize and acknowledge those policies.
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys that it's entirely unavoidable, and that if you're not benefiting from some of the efficiencies that are afforded by AI, you're kind of going to fall behind. Of course, most businesses are integrating AI into their operations, whether it's something like a Gen AI tool like ChatGPT, or an AI-powered analytics tool like something that many of our listeners would be familiar with that are built into their SPM platforms. My question is, does external AI tool, does it create a different risk than something that's built into business software?
Yeah, it depends on how it's architected and how it's integrated in and how kind of the data is flowing between the various sources that it's pulling from, right? It's no different than when you hire a vendor to do a task, right? You're transferring that risk over to that vendor, and so if you're not examining the vendor's function as a whole and their processes, procedures, and how they do things, then you're going to be open and vulnerable to any kind of like attack, right? And so AI is no different, and we have to make sure that the vendor, the tool that we're using, platform, that it's being scrutinized.
And I would also say if it's free, how are they making money? They're making money on your data somehow, right? That's just the fact. Anything, is social media, AI. If it's free, they're making money on you somehow. And it's your data that they're making money on. So, at least here at Bright Defense, we use some of the paid platforms where presumably they're more mindful about not sharing our data, not training their models on our data. So thinking about, do you want to use the latest free Chinese AI software for your business? Probably not if you want to keep your data secure, right? So these are the kind of things to think about.
We hear a lot about AI making cyber attacks more sophisticated, from deepfake phishing emails to like AI-powered hacking. How real is the threat? Is it a growing threat? And is the security industry prepared for it?
Yeah, definitely a real threat because, a lot of the sophisticated hackers are basically trying to scan the entire internet, right, for vulnerabilities. And so you can imagine that now with even more powerful tools and the use of like AI agents, they can replicate their work instead of using just a normal script to find open holes. They can replicate their particular knowledge that they have in their head and replicate out into these various browser-based agents that are clicking and doing things that they would normally do, and multiply this, order of magnitude, right, across like a bunch of systems that are there. The number of breaches will increase for sure. But there also are tools that leverage AI and automated scanning to help protect as well, right, for these things. And so we have to use similar tools to block these attacks, block the patterns, and use generative AI tools to gain insight into what's going on. Why am I being scanned by all these various IP addresses that, why don't I just block the ones I don't need? Like simple things be done to ensure that we're going to mitigate our attack surface.
That makes sense, yeah. Regulations like GDPR and ISO require strict data protections, but AI tools also thrive on ingesting vast amounts of data. Are businesses making compliance harder by adopting AI, or can AI actually help with governance and security in some way?
That's a tough one. John, you go for it.
I mean, I think the answer is probably both. Definitely both. From a helping perspective, we're leveraging tools that are built into platforms like Drata to automate portions of compliance where it makes sense. It still requires human oversight and human understanding and the ability to kind of like answer nuanced questions about what makes sense for a customer's organization. But leveraging automation, leveraging things like security awareness technologies that help us answer security questionnaires more efficiently makes a lot of sense because those are extremely time consuming. You'll see that on the sales process too, that a customer will send over a security questionnaire. It probably has 80% of the same questions that your last customer's questionnaire, but answering those manually each time takes up a lot of time in the sales cycle. It takes some executive having to look over those answers and making sure they're valid. So we leverage AI and those kind of capabilities to kind of speed up some of the processes, but definitely it opens up a lot of risks as well.
Yeah, I think thinking that every employee should ask themselves too is when they're using a new tool, it's like, what are you doing with my data? Where is it landing, and what are you doing with it, right? And if they can consider these things before they hit that very easy to sign up, but it's hard to kind of delete the data. If they stop and pause and think about these things before signing up, it can help mitigate a lot of these things, right? Ask for permission too, right, to make sure that you can use these things, because sometimes even the IT team is not aware of, every single new tool that pops up, right? And it's hard to keep the websites up to date of what is allowed and what's not allowed, right? So these things are very important to consider. Where's my data being processed and what are you doing with it?
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act for businesses, increasing efficiency with the AI, but at the same time, preventing data leaks. Let's talk about the takeaways for business leaders. If a business really wants to leverage AI without compromising their security, what's the most important thing they should be doing?
Yeah, the most important thing is to address it head on, right? What is the company willing to allow and not allow when it comes to the use of AI, and then make it very clear. And so, if we have that executive buy-in from the top down, it's going to make things a lot more transparent downstream. So, it's very important to make sure that this is being addressed with all your employees.
So, what are some warning signs that a company's AI adoption is creating vulnerabilities for the business?
I would say that if you don't have any policies and procedures in place, that's your biggest warning sign. You really have to have thought about what's appropriate for your organization, what's allowed and what's not allowed. And if you haven't done that, that's a big red flag. They're definitely going to be using AI and they're going to be how they see fit and not how your organization sees fit. And so I'd say you need to be proactive and you need to be ahead of it and have very clearly stated policies and procedures.
Yeah, and the AI may be kind of used in a manner that you won't even know about it, right? Like the spell checking tool that a lot of people use, there's various plugins for these things. And so, you may not know that it's actually using AI on the back end to train its various models. And so these are going to be a lot more challenging to kind of be aware of. But we always start with policy first and then kind of go into the controls where we can start blocking things and applying some more technical controls to build up that defensive layer.
Yeah. Are there AI-powered security tools that actually help mitigate some of these risks? Or do you think that they typically introduce new vulnerabilities and challenges?
Yeah, so there's definitely use of AI tools in many security products, right? From processing vast amounts of data, logs that are being ingested in. So a tool like a security incident event monitoring tool, or a SIM or SIEM that people call it, uh, you're ingesting massive amounts of data. You need a way to be able to parse that information because there's no way that you can have a human read this stuff coming in a reasonable amount of time. And so we rely on tools like, and data models like that can use AI to help present information in a manner that's easily actionable, and then also take actions upon it, right? And so kick off a playbook to block something or remediate something. So these are ways that we're using it on the defensive side.
Yeah, then also, we leverage platforms that automate compliance as well. So those are monitoring tools to make sure that policies and procedures that are in place are being effectively administered by employees and by managers. Also making sure that we're automating things like security questionnaire, making sure that we're tracking onboarding and offboarding of employees. All those things can be, improved by the use of AI.
Yeah. Okay, so is there one big security trend that businesses should be paying more attention to in 2025 from where you sit?
I think one of the biggest trends is the use of AI to do deepfake, right, of the CEO, and actually being able to mimic and replicate someone's voice by just various samples of data, taking stuff from YouTube, a podcast like this, to be able to start mimicking their voice. And then next thing you know, it's calling the junior accountant and, asking for a wire transfer or things like that, right? So those are going to be things that are going to be very challenging. The social side of things are always going to be a huge concern, where employees are the biggest risk. And so employees need to just be aware, take that extra step to really call the CEO back, right? Is this for real or not, right? And verify. Go meet them in person. Did you really ask me to do these things, right? Like, get back to the old school way of doing things.
I know when I get those spam calls, I just say hello. And I in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to say anything else because they try to steal my voice. But I mean, I imagine they could just steal my voice from this podcast or from my YouTube video. So I think making sure that you take that extra step to validate that the person is who they are, especially if they're asking you to send them money, obviously
Mhm.
critical.
So, John and Tim, this has been a really fascinating conversation. AI is reshaping cybersecurity in real time. And while it brings new risks, it also creates opportunities to strengthen defenses if businesses know how to use it wisely. For leaders in sales compensation, sales operations, and finance, the key takeaway should be this: AI isn't just another tool, it's a shift in how security needs to be approached. And from managing vendor risks to protecting sensitive information, businesses need to stay proactive, not just reactive. John and Tim, thank you for joining and sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And for those of you tuning in, stay secure, stay informed, and we'll catch you in the next episode of Compensation Matters.